Welcome back to Storytime Boulevard, your destination to sleep. I'm Andrew, and as always, I'm honored to be here with you tonight. Wherever you are, I invite you to slow down, soften your breath, and allow yourself to settle into stillness. Tonight's story is called Starlight Above Paris. It's a romantic, dreamlike tale that drifts through the midnight skies of the City of Light, where an unexpected journey unfolds above the rooftops, and something long forgotten begins to awaken in the heart. Before we begin, if you find peace in these stories, we'd be so grateful if you'd take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps Storytime Boulevard grow and brings more dreamy tales to gentle hearts like yours. Now let's take a moment to arrive. Go ahead and find a comfortable position, whether you're lying down beneath the covers or nestled into your favorite spot. Gently close your eyes, inhale deeply, and exhale slowly. Now again, inhale, filling the lungs, the belly, and exhale, releasing any tension in your shoulders, your neck, your chest. As you continue to breathe gently in and out, repeat quietly in your mind, I am safe. I am at peace. I am open to rest and open to dreams. Let your body grow heavier with every breath. Let the day fade. Let the night wrap around you like a soft blanket. Now, if you're ready, let's take to the sky and begin our story. Starlight Above Paris. It was the kind of evening that felt like a secret. The air in Montmartre was cool and fragrant, laced with the scent of fresh rain and warm stone. A gentle mist curled around lampposts, casting halos of golden light onto the quiet cobblestone streets. Most windows had already gone dark, save for a few soft glows where the night owls still lingered. A writer at his desk, a couple dancing in their kitchen, a cafe owner polishing wine glasses in the hush before close. In a small third-floor apartment just above a sleepy flower shop, Camille was brushing the tangles from her hair when she noticed something strange. There, resting on her windowsill, as though it had been carried in by the wind, was an envelope, pale cream, thick and textured. Her name written on the front in looping cursive, soft as a whisper. No stamp, no address, just Camille. Her fingers hesitated for a moment before she opened it. Inside was a small card, worn at the edges and dusted with something faintly glittering. A single line had been written in that same elegant hand. For one night only, a voyage above the city of dreams. Midnight, Rue des Étoiles. No explanation, no signature. Camille blinked. Her first instinct was skepticism. A prank, surely. Or maybe some strange promotion. But as she held the card, she noticed something curious. The handwriting felt familiar. Not in the way one recognizes a person, but in the way one recognizes a feeling, like the warmth of a forgotten melody, or the scent of an old love letter. She turned it over. Blank. But the air around her had shifted. The ordinary felt slightly out of step, like something unseen had taken a breath. She should have dismissed it, tossed it in the recycling and gone to bed. But she didn't. Instead, just before midnight, she found herself stepping into the misty dark, coat buttoned and scarf looped gently around her neck, the card tucked safely in her pocket. The walk to Rue des Étoiles was quiet and strange in the best way, like walking through a city half asleep. Even Montmartre, usually alive with laughter and music, felt still, as though holding its breath. Cats blinked lazily from windowsills. A jazz melody floated from a record player in some distant apartment, trailing off like the tale of a dream. She turned a corner and saw it. The street was more of an alley, really, narrow and lined with ivy-covered stone walls. At its end stood a garden gate, old and slightly crooked, with no house or shop in sight. But through the bars, she could see it. A magnificent hot air balloon, tethered in a quiet courtyard, bathed in silver moonlight. Its fabric shimmered in hues of midnight blue, stitched with soft gold patterns that glowed faintly in the dark. It looked ancient and magical, like something out of a forgotten fairy tale. The basket below was woven from something rich and dark, and above it the balloon pulsed gently with the rhythm of the wind, as if it were breathing. A man stood beside it, silhouetted by the glow of lanterns that hung like stars around the garden's edge. He was dressed in a long overcoat, hands folded in front of him. "Camille?" he asked, voice soft and clear. She hesitated. "Yes." The man smiled, kind, not too familiar. "You're right on time." She stepped through the gate, feeling as though she was stepping out of time itself, out of the life she knew, and into something else entirely. "Is this yours?" she asked, motioning to the balloon. "No," he said, still smiling. "I'm just the keeper. Tonight, it belongs to you." Camille glanced up again at the balloon, its ropes creaking gently in the breeze. 1,000 questions pressed against her lips, but none seemed to matter enough to ask. She stepped into the basket, and with a quiet whoosh of flame and silk, the balloon began to rise, lifting them slowly, gracefully, into the sky above Paris, where the stars waited in silence. Camille leaned against the edge, her breath catching as the rooftops fell away below her. She didn't know where they were going. She only knew she was exactly where she needed to be. The balloon rose, like a whispered secret, into the midnight sky. Below, Paris shimmered, not with the brightness of day, but with the soft, golden hush of a city in slumber. Street lamps cast long, gentle shadows across winding alleys. The Seine curved through the heart of it all like a ribbon of dark glass, catching the light in glints and fragments. Camille stood still, hands resting on the basket's edge, eyes wide in wonder. The wind kissed her cheeks, cool and clean, carrying with it the scent of river water, chimney smoke, and something faintly sweet, like vanilla and memory. The silence was beautiful, but it didn't last. Behind her, there was a soft clearing of a throat, barely a sound, but enough to break the spell. She turned. There, at the far corner of the basket, was someone she hadn't seen before. A man, tall and quietly dressed, leaning just slightly against the railing. He had dark, thoughtful eyes and a book in one hand, half closed, as though he had stopped mid-sentence to watch her. His coat, a deep charcoal grey, fluttered gently in the breeze. Camille blinked. I thought I was alone, she said, startled but not afraid. So did I, he replied, voice low and calm. But it seems the balloon had other plans. She hesitated. Did you get an invitation too? He nodded, reaching into his coat and pulling out a card identical to hers. He held it up between two fingers, then tucked it back without another word. I'm Julien, he said after a moment. No last name tonight. It seems unnecessary. She offered a soft smile. Camille. They stood in silence again, side by side now, as the balloon drifted above the city's glittering tapestry. For a while, neither spoke. Then Julien broke the stillness. Do you think it's odd, he asked, to be floating above Paris in the middle of the night with a stranger and no destination? Camille looked out over the skyline, the moonlight brushing rooftops, the faint silhouette of the Eiffel Tower glowing in the distance, like a guardian of dreams. Maybe, she said softly, but I think what would be stranger is if we weren't both in need of it. Julien gave a faint laugh, not mocking, but sad around the edges. I suppose you're right. The balloon shifted gently in the air, tilting them toward the river. The hum of the city had all but disappeared now, replaced by the sound of the wind and the faint creaking of the ropes above. Julien ran a hand along the edge of the basket, tracing the grain of the wood. "I've been trying to forget," he said quietly, as if speaking more to the stars than to her. Or maybe trying to remember. It's hard to tell the difference. Camille turned toward him, sensing something familiar in his words. "I know what you mean," she said. "Sometimes the two feel like the same thing." A silence passed between them, but this time it felt like understanding, not absence. Above them, the stars seemed to brighten, not with brilliance, but with closeness, as if the balloon had climbed into their arms. Julien looked up. "Do you ever wonder," he said, "if maybe the sky remembers us when we forget ourselves?" Camille closed her eyes for a moment and let the breeze brush her skin. "I do now," she whispered. And so the balloon carried them on, two hearts adrift in the quiet sky, rising slowly over the rooftops of the sleeping city, towards something neither of them could name just yet. But they were no longer alone, and that, for now, was more than enough. The balloon moved without sound, floating effortlessly above the rooftops, like a thought slipping through the veil of sleep. Paris stretched out below in a quiet mosaic, shadows softened by moonlight, rooftops kissed with silver, and the golden dome of Les Invalides glowing like a candle left for someone who had not yet returned. Camille leaned slightly over the edge of the basket, the wind brushing her cheek with soft fingers. "It's like the city is dreaming," she said. Julien nodded beside her, his gaze steady on the horizon. "Maybe it is." The balloon dipped slightly, sweeping low over the Seine. The water below glinted like melted obsidian, reflecting the soft twinkle of street lamps and the occasional flicker of a passing boat. Bridges arched gracefully from bank to bank, their reflections forming halos on the surface. But something had shifted in the air. Camille noticed it first, a flicker of movement like film slipping through a reel. On one of the bridges below, she saw two figures dancing, slow and soundless. Their clothing was old-fashioned, a woman in a long coat, a man in suspenders, and they moved with the elegance of memory. She blinked. The couple vanished. A few rooftops ahead, a cafe flickered to life, golden and warm, though the streets around it were dark. Inside, a man sat alone with a book, a record playing in the background, the faint trace of jazz spilling into the air, and then gone. The city wasn't just sleeping. It was showing them something. Camille turned toward Julien, her voice low. Are you seeing this too? He was watching closely now. Yes, but I'm not sure it's meant to be seen. As the balloon floated onward, the scenes became more vivid. On a balcony, a girl in a yellow dress released a paper lantern into the sky, her face lit with hope. In a narrow alley, a boy painted stars on the pavement while his dog watched patiently. And atop a crumbling rooftop garden, an old woman tended to flowers long since wilted in the waking world. They weren't ghosts exactly. They were moments, fragments of time held tenderly by the city itself. Julien spoke softly. I think we're floating through memories or wishes. Camille watched the lantern rise, its light growing smaller as it climbed toward them. Do you think they're ours? Maybe, Julien said. Or maybe they belong to the city. Maybe Paris remembers everything its people forget. They were quiet again. The balloon turned slightly, carried by wind that felt less like wind and more like guidance, a gentle hand steering them, not toward a place, but a feeling, a truth. Far below, the streets flickered like candlelight, past and present weaving together like a lullaby only the sky could hear. Camille felt something stir inside her chest. Not pain, not joy, but recognition, as if a part of her she'd set aside long ago was waking up just enough to say, I'm still here. She looked over at Julien, who was watching her with the same wonder in his eyes. I think, she said quietly, this is where dreams go when we forget to follow them. Julien smiled, not answering, because some things are better left unspoken, and together they drifted deeper into the night, where the sky held not just stars, but the soft, forgotten pieces of who they used to be. The balloon glided higher now, cradled between moonlight and memory. Below them, the cityscape grew quieter, almost reverent. The buildings thinned, and the lights of Paris shimmered like constellations stitched across the earth. But even from this height, the pull of the past lingered in the air, subtle and steady, as if the city itself were whispering, there is more to see. They drifted above a familiar cathedral, its towers tall and solemn, its bells long since silenced for the night. Camille leaned forward, staring down at the shadow of Notre Dame. And then something shifted. A vision came into view. There, in the glow of the moonlight, was a younger version of herself. She stood just outside the cathedral steps, holding a red umbrella, rain streaking her cheeks like tears. Camille froze. That moment wasn't from a dream. It was real. "I waited there for hours," she whispered, voice caught in her throat. "For someone who never showed up." Julien turned toward her gently. "You remember the hurt?" She nodded. "I never really let myself feel it. I just moved on, or told myself I had." As she spoke, the vision faded, not abruptly, but slowly, like morning light stealing stars from the sky. Camille's fingers tightened on the edge of the basket. She hadn't expected the city to remember that. Julien looked down, his own eyes shadowed. "It's strange. I thought I was the only one carrying something heavy." He reached into the inside pocket of his coat and pulled out a small, folded photograph, the edges curled from time and touch. He handed it to her. A woman stood at the edge of a train platform, smiling at the camera, unaware she was being photographed. There was something timeless in her expression, a kindness Camille felt instantly, like warmth on the skin. "She asked me to come with her. Years ago," Julien said. "A life across the ocean. She said she'd wait until I was ready." He exhaled slowly, his breath visible in the cold. "I never showed, and I never told her why." Camille handed the photo back, her heart aching for the quiet in his voice. "What stopped you?" she asked. He looked out at the horizon. "Fear. Of choosing wrong. Of letting go of the life I knew, even if it wasn't really living." There was a long silence. And then Camille said softly, "Maybe this is where we leave those things." Julien looked at her. "Maybe this is why we're here at all." The balloon rocked gently, almost as if it agreed. They drifted past a row of chimneys and weathered rooftops, where the shadows of old scenes played like memories across time, part theatre, part truth, part dream. A woman writing letters by candlelight, never sent. A boy building paper boats and floating them down a gutter. A man sitting in silence on the edge of his bed, holding a photograph just like Julien's. So many lives, paused mid-thought. So many hearts, waiting to exhale. Camille closed her eyes. She didn't need to chase the past anymore. She just needed to feel it, then let it go. When she opened them again, the vision of herself in the rain had vanished. But her chest felt lighter, as if the balloon weren't the only thing rising into the sky. Julien leaned beside her now, his shoulder close, warm, but not pressing. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Paris below, the stars above, and between them, two souls beginning to forgive what they'd never said aloud. The sky had begun its slow turning. Somewhere far behind them, night was folding into morning. The stars, once bright and clear, were softening at the edges, not fading, but tucking themselves away like a secret kept close to the heart. Camille rested her hands on the edge of the basket, the wind now barely a breeze. It felt as though even the air was pausing to listen. Julien stood beside her, quiet but not distant. There was a stillness between them, the kind that didn't ask to be filled, only shared. Below them, the city gleamed with early light. Not yet dawn, but not quite night. That beautiful, breathless in-between. The balloon drifted silently over the Marais now, its courtyards and alleyways still and shadowed, its windows closed like eyelids. Camille let her gaze wander, and then she saw it. A narrow street, a faded storefront, a place she hadn't thought about in years. Her grandmother's old patisserie. The shop had closed long ago, but in this soft, strange light, it looked just as it had when she was a child. Curtains fluttering, warm glow spilling onto the street. The scent of almond and citrus carried on the wind. She blinked. There, behind the counter, was her grandmother, younger than she had ever seen her, smiling, rolling out dough, humming. Camille's throat tightened. She hadn't realized how deeply she missed that version of home, the one that lived in quiet mornings and sugared fingertips. Julien followed her gaze. "Do you want to go back?" he asked gently. She shook her head. "No. I just needed to know it was still there." They hovered above the street for a moment longer, the vision lingering like steam from a teacup. And then it too was gone. Camille turned toward Julien. "Why do you think the city is showing us these things?" He thought for a long moment. Then, "Because Paris listens, and maybe tonight it's speaking back." She smiled, a soft, tired kind of smile. "What do you think it's saying?" He looked at her with something unreadable in his eyes. "That we're not lost, just waiting to be found." The wind shifted slightly, and the balloon adjusted, curving now toward the distant silhouette of Sacré-Cœur, rising above the rooftops like a pale guardian. The morning light was beginning to reach its base, warming the stone to a quiet blush. Julien reached for her hand, not with urgency, not with question, just an offering. And Camille, without hesitation, took it. His palm was warm, solid, steady, the kind of touch that didn't ask for anything in return, only presence. They stood like that in the hush before dawn. Two strangers, no longer quite strangers, held aloft by silk and silence, their shared weight made lighter by truth. Below them, Paris exhaled, a city not asleep, but dreaming with them. The wind had grown gentle, as if aware that something sacred was nearing its end. Camille could feel it, not just in the way the balloon began to lower, but in her chest, where a softness had taken root, a quiet loosening, the kind that comes not from forgetting, but from finally allowing yourself to remember without pain. The sky around them was pale lavender now, blushed with the coming dawn. The stars had all but disappeared, save for one, faint and stubborn, lingering just above the horizon, like a final note of a song. Julien still held her hand loosely, as if he, too, was reluctant to break the spell. Neither had spoken in a while. There was nothing left to explain. The balloon had given them its story, and they had met it with open hearts. Below them, rooftops grew clearer, more grounded. The glow of morning fires lit a few chimneys, and the bakery scent of fresh bread wafted up from invisible windows. They were descending slowly toward a rooftop garden, one Camille didn't recognize, though it felt strangely familiar. Vines curled along the walls, ivy grew wild around the railing, and a wrought iron bench sat at the far corner, dew already forming on its seat. The balloon came to rest with a soft sigh, the silk above them deflating slightly, like lungs exhaling after a deep breath. Camille stepped out first, her boots touching the stone tiles of the rooftop, like a traveller returning from another world. Julien followed behind her. For a long moment, they stood together, watching as the balloon deflated completely. Its once floating silk now lay folded in the basket, as if the night had packed itself away. "Well," Julien said softly, turning to her, "we've returned." She smiled. "Have we?" He considered that. Maybe not entirely. There was a stillness then, the kind that comes not from awkwardness, but from something quietly understood. Camille touched the pocket where the invitation had been. Empty now. It had vanished somewhere during the flight. Or perhaps it had never been a physical thing at all. Julien reached into his coat one last time and handed her something small, a folded piece of paper. She opened it. A sketch, done in delicate pencil. The two of them in the basket, drifting above Paris, her scarf blowing in the wind. His coat open. The stars above them, softly drawn. Beneath the sketch, a single line, for the night that remembered us. Camille looked up, eyes shimmering. You drew this? He nodded. From memory, while we were flying. She didn't know what to say. So instead, she reached up and gently touched his cheek. Thank you, she whispered, for not being a ghost. Julien smiled at that, a smile that held warmth, sadness, and something beginning to bloom. And then, just like that, he turned and walked toward the stairs at the far side of the roof. He paused once at the top step, glanced back, and disappeared. Camille stood alone now, the sun rising behind her, the balloon sleeping in silence. But she wasn't the same woman who had stepped into the basket hours ago. She had let go of something, and in return, she had made space for something new. The end. Thank you for joining us tonight on Storytime Boulevard. We hope Starlight Above Paris carried you gently through the sky, reminded you of something quiet and true within yourself, and helped you release whatever you no longer need to hold. Because sometimes all it takes is one soft night, one unexpected journey to remember who you are beneath the noise of the day. As you settle into sleep, know this: you are not alone. You are not forgotten. You are always welcome here, in this place of rest, wonder, and dreaming. Good night, gentle dreamer. From all of us at Storytime Boulevard, may your sleep be deep, your dreams be vivid, and your heart always open to the magic hiding in plain sight. Sleep well.